So, instructional design is just not working on the technology stack. It definitely has a lot of other skill sets like the people management, project management, collaborating. That's like the core, and being creative. I think every teacher is creative by nature because, and then they are people persons, right? And in here, you are transitioning all that energy, all of that skill to designing a product.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kirill, and this is my podcast about UX career. In this episode, I'm talking to Sofia Caroline, who is a learning experience designer at Amazon India. Sofia shares her career story and how she transitioned from a non tech role as classroom teacher to a tech role as a learning experience designer. We also talk about what learning experience designers do and what skills they need for their job. We talk about design process they use for developing new experiences and the challenges of designing for international audiences with all the different languages and localization issues. Sophie also shares some tips for keeping your audience engaged when developing learning experiences and much more. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Welcome, Sophia. Welcome. Thank you for coming to my show.
I'm so glad. Thank you, Kirill, for having me.
When I saw your story and how you managed to transition from, I would say, like a non-tech world to the tech world, I found like a very interesting and inspiring story, and I really wanted for you to come and share this with the audience because I think this should instill more confidence in folks who are considering transitioning. And I'm sure you have a lot of lessons learned that you wish you knew if you were to start this journey again, or if you're just kind of doing it the first time. So I'm really curious and looking forward to this conversation and to hear your learnings. Let's start with with the beginning. What did you do before? Like, how did you start? Why did you go into teaching, into education, and what do you do today?
Great. I'm so excited, Kirill, to be here and talk with you and share my journey. Um, so basically, I am from India and I've studied sciences during my schooling, and then I graduated in biotechnology. Then back in 2000s, it was all about getting a job in a corporate, and I stood out with my language skills, so I got into corporate, and that's when I started working as a customer service executive. And couple of years later, I landed in a teaching job. So I did a lot of content writing for primary and secondary children. Then I completely got into a role where it was training different set of folks, right, from new hires to executives, and then communication, leadership, and development, all aspects or all what do I say, theories of learning. And once COVID hit, everything changed. So the classroom became really inverted, and it was a challenge. It was, I mean, if I look back now, I will say it's a breakthrough for me. And we had to like wrap everything up and say, okay, people come on. Come online, we will have 8 hour classroom sessions. That's when I decided, no, this is not going to work. I have to gain more skills and look for an alternative to make my learning more interesting, more engaging, and impactful. That's when my journey into instructional design started. And fortunately, I got an apprenticeship with an Amazon. And today I'm an instructional designer or learning experience designer, as we call it here.
Very interesting. So basically, you went through a not as common, but more common than I would think, transition from a traditional science, like science kind of or traditional field, into the tech field. So I'm curious, like the first impression was like, I'm curious about your, I guess, first observations about what are the main key differences between two worlds, the non-tech and the tech.
Non-tech, I mean, you are so how do I say? You're so naive and so into art, and it's a different feel, and it's different experience altogether. But technology is, if you look at the pros, it is very supportive to in your day-to-day life. I mean, you talk about basically like the transport, or you're using the mobile, right? It's very enriching to your the, activities or the chores. So w- if I have to be honest, I totally hated technology, and then once I started learning the advantages that it had, and the difference it could make, personally for me, I started loving, and I started exploring and learning through it. So just like the television is a technology, right? So it's for entertainment now. So yeah.
Talking about technology, so what are your thoughts on? And this is gonna we'll go back to your story, and I would like to dig deeper into the learnings and the takeaways. But what are your thoughts on the new AI technology, and how do you think this will change the tech, like the learning experience, like in the tech world, and also how it will change or is already potentially changing the traditional education, and like when you're going to classrooms, and especially with kids and children of early age, right? So because I would assume that I think they would benefit from more, I guess, personal approach and kind of more like face to face interactions, because I've seen the negative consequences of a lack of social interaction during the COVID, when a bunch of schools were uh, transitioned to remote education, which I think was not really good for children, just kind of from how they're supposed to be developing those social skills, right? In this age, especially more important. So, yeah, well, I'm just curious about the kind of, because you're an insider in this learning experience, as also coming from the traditional education. So, what do you think will happen in the future with education, with like in the AI?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think it's a very interesting time that we are in the UX right now, especially this field. And I, from here, it's just going to go up. We will not look back, or it's not going to fade away for sure. With these emerging technologies, we'll become more adapting, and if I have to go back a decade and see where UX was, not a lot of roles, not a lot of people knew instructional design or UX, right? But in anything that I'm using, I see a lot of design, I see a lot of UX that has gone into it. Um, the very basic, like if I have to talk about education and schooling, the attendance was manual. People, I mean, teachers used to like mark the attendance manually. Right now there's technology and it can take care. So you just have to do a couple of clicks, and the schedules are ready. um, there were times that we used to write things down on a piece of paper, but now every child has an iPad. So there is technology. It is all, it is a, I think a blend of both will be good. So you use technology for your advantage, and then you remain a bit old school too. And I think it's inevitable that the technology is only going to emerge, and we have to become more agile towards it.
Yeah, I also think like it's basically we don't have any other option, right? So we have
Yeah.
to we have to learn and adapt and figure out a way
Yes.
how to live with it. Like you cannot really stop it, especially with how
Yeah.
fast everything has been moving. But
Yeah.
I like your point that kind of just the mindset that try to use technologies like as a like an idea of calculator, right? That kind of helps you
Hmm.
do the like some tasks faster,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't, it's almost like an aid to you to your job,
Yeah.
but not really a replacement. And There should still
Yeah,
be thinking and critical thinking and analysis, and
absolutely.
ideally creative problem solving.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I think like some tasks will be just you'll be able to do it faster.
Yes, yes, um, absolutely. I mean, you look at a design and then you think, wow, that's so fantastic, and nobody notices the customer experience or the UX in it. The only UX people notice is a bad one, right? So,
Exactly.
um, uh, it's there, and you will have to use it for your own good, and at the same time it's a UX practitioners getting more adaptable and thinking through what are the different ways to make it more successful, or yeah, this is not going to be non-valuable. We will not come back anytime soon or in the future to this whole model of technology and say no, we can't live with technology. We will live with technology, and I hear a lot of news about we will not be able to trade in the future like it was prophesied in the Bible, that unless you have the microchip. So yeah, we are getting there. It's a bit scary with the AI and the VR or the AR, but yeah, we are getting there, and users will be our core, right? Unless there are users for us to do the research, and there are customers who are going to experience that design, we will be there.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, and talking about like the scary part, right? So what I'm kind of also a bit skeptical or concerned about is that lots of people take what this, like for example ChatGPT, like the most I guess noticeable mention today, as of today, take the output of this system for granted, and they believe it right away. They think it's like basically is just some I guess valid ideas, and the information is legit. When in reality, I like there was somebody came up with an interesting comparison. It's almost like spell checker on steroids. So it doesn't really know what it tells you or what kind of it outputs, right? It just kind of basically comes up with the next most likely word or something like this, like the way how these systems work. But lots of people don't know, like don't really understand how it works, and they think that whatever the answer is the right answer. And as an example, one of my colleagues was playing with this, and she was asking about cognitive biases, just kind of description and like explanation, definition, and the information was completely incorrect on some of them. And but it sounded so valid, like so legit. So it's kind of if person didn't know that, there is a risk that they can just kind of trust it. And for example, like thinking about the education, right? So how many people, I wonder, would trust these outputs, these systems, and what they get from this, and almost like don't like ignore, not ignore, but replace teachers, like and whatever
Yeah,
kind of the experts would be able to truly say with these automated systems, and think that it's kind of just a faster way to get the answer, but the answer might not be right. So I'm kind of a bit yeah, concerned about that. I saw an interesting some interesting, I guess, ways how some of those systems try to solve it when they add sources. I think that's actually an amazing change. I think Google system, or maybe Beans does it. But there's definitely a risk of more and more information, and not all information may be correct, and people just not realizing this because it sounds so convincing, right?
true.
Yeah. Okay, so let's now talk a bit more in more details about your transition journey, and let's frame it as a way. Like, imagine that I'm also a teacher, and I work in the non-tech world, and I am considering exploring other opportunities where I can grow and maybe transition my career, right? So thinking from and going into learning experience design, maybe you can just kind of for like starting with the basics. What exactly learning experience designer does?
That's very interesting. So, a learning experience designer takes care of providing learning solutions. For example, if there is a new hire in the organization and they would want to uh, perform an X uh, job, they will need certain skill sets. And for the new hire to have those skill set or display those competencies, they will need a supportive system like training, and that's where the instructional designer comes in picture to develop a learning solution which can enable a new hire or a trainee to learn new skill sets and gain those competencies and perform the job.
Maybe let's go back to kind of your path exactly, right? And like, what exactly I would say were how did you have to prepare for this transition? Let's start there. Like, what skills maybe you had to ramp up or learn, and any other considerations? What a person would need to know, or if they consider this transition.
Oh, yes. So instructional design is just not working on the technology stack. It definitely has a lot of other skill sets like the people management, project management, collaborating. That's like the core, and being creative. I think every teacher is creative by nature because, and then there are people persons, right? And in here, you are transitioning all that energy, all of that skill to designing a product. So the skills that I had to upskill myself was learning different kind of authoring tools like Rise and Storyline. It was a journey of a year for me to get upskilled on the tools, then display and develop different learning solutions, work with stakeholders, and create a lot of successful or result yielding learning products, and display low to medium and high complex problem solving skills, and take up a couple of certifications as well. So, and I was fortunate enough to be handpicked, and it only happened because when COVID started, we were all working from home, and we were not able to engage the audience for 8 hours through an online program. So we had to completely transition the training programs to an e-learning product. So for that to happen, somebody has to learn how to develop those e-learning curriculums. So designing performance-based learning objectives, or how do you create learning plans. We create schedules, being a teacher or a trainer. The same happens in here. You will have to picturize everything. You do a lot of storyboarding. You identify your audience, and you work backwards in terms of what is that you're trying to achieve by developing that learning solution. So this is how the day to day looks like. And I started off with a complete year of journey. First was to understand what a learning designer does, then learn the tools that they work on. And after I learned, I have to apply and develop smaller to um, higher complex products, or when I say products, they are learning solutions from Rise, Storyline, and Camtasia. After that, it was working on live projects, interacting with stakeholders, and displaying a lot of project management skills using project management tools like Asana, that we use currently, and tracking different milestones. How am I able to achieve them? And what are the red flags, the blockers? How do I mitigate through them? And how am I taking different learning requests that come my way? Am I solving for everything, or am I saying no? So this is what it looked like.
And if you were to start today, like or going through the same journey again, is there like any quick any ways how you can get to this level faster? So like maybe like you said, like you spent a year like learning these systems, right? And the systems is mostly basically content management systems, right? Where that can allow you to add content. But I wonder if there is like any lessons learned that you would do differently next time, or maybe there is like a more optimal way to this stage.
Yeah, yeah. But the definitely there is a way. So once I completed it, there was a new model of getting the training specialist into a learning experience design role in 3 months of time. So all that I learned was an experiment, and it was compiled, and then the 3 months program was all about um, learning the tools, then applying it and displaying project management skills on just one project. Right. If I have to say what I would have done differently is um, having having this knowledge of okay, I can do it, and then being confident, because I was always doubting myself. Oh my god, I can't learn storyline, it's so complicated. There are so many different features in it. And then once I developed a product, I was like, this is just a simple advanced PowerPoint, and I had to be more flexible. um, and yeah, just being confident, and playing around with each tool and see having fun with it. Just like have you do not like something, for example, if you don't like cooking but you have to eat, you end up doing something for yourself, and then you eventually fall in love with it. So
Hmm.
it's just like that.
Interesting. So on the reverse side of this, what kind of a person you think would not enjoy being a learning experience designer? Because I believe that like there are millions of different jobs, right? Different professions and things that the person can do. And ideally, you would rather want to find something that really fits or matches your personality, your passions, your interests, your curiosity, and so it's kind of and skill set ideally that you can kind of grow into as well. But I wonder if there is like if you think like some parts of like of a I don't know of a person or like of their personality would not be really a good fit for this job.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting, and I have seen quite a lot of them fail when they thought they can survive in instructional design, because there are a lot of friends and colleagues that I knew wanted to pursue because that was the next big thing, and they couldn't stand, or they couldn't succeed at getting into the role. Um, Somebody who think that, yeah, I can survive the job, will not be able to succeed in this, because every learning request that you get is different, is very challenging, and you will have to be creative. At the same time, you should be very decisive. If you are indecisive, then this is not for you. If you're somebody who do not want to do with a lot of technology, who don't really like to learn tools, who do not want to be keeping them up to date, then yeah, this is not your cup of tea.
I like the idea about the decisiveness.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder if there's like any job actually there that would fit the indecisive person type. You probably need to be able to make decisions everywhere, but
Yeah.
that is an interesting point about the different requests coming in. Do you use like any particular framework or design process methodology? How do you really approach a project, like from the beginning till the end?
Awesome. I so love this question, because after a lot of trials and errors, we as a team have brilliant mechanism, and it has been adapted with by other teams as well. So yeah, when the learning request comes in, there is a group of experts who have consultation with the stakeholder to understand what their learning request is, and if they identify that we can provide the solution, and if it's aligning with our business goal, we proceed with it. And then there's the learning experience designer aligned to the project. Along with that, there there will be another senior experienced designer or a quality mentor who is in that project through the end. um, and then it's the LXD who defines how long will the project take, or what are the different milestones, who is the audience, will we still proceed with it. Scalability is a big question. So there was a very interesting project that came my way when I got it. It was already committed that we will be giving them the video that can replace the classroom training. But I had to work with a stakeholder and say, you know what, your process is very dynamic. A video e-learning cannot replace the in-person learning. So please develop smaller modules of the content which is not going to change in the future, and then combine it with a virtual training with the instructor about the ever-changing project, which is very dynamic.
That's a very interesting point about the challenges. So like, so and how many people do you usually get involved in, for example, one project like this?
It's, I mean, we are a team of 30. So for any project, it'll be like 2 to 3, and at the max 4. Again, it depends on the how big the project is. I just winded up a project which was catered to an audience of 5,000, and I single-handedly um, completed the project with a very few interventions by a learning technologist, because they work on the dashboards and they work on how do we identify the learning application.
And do you have any tips on maybe like advice or learning? So maybe something that you didn't expect to be maybe like a challenging part of this process. How do you, because like this is also I would say I would think that it's a similar challenge with the kind of the product design kind of process, like the digital products UX world. Uh, how do you find the balance between the business needs, what basically you're asked to do, and the user needs? And how do you, like the second question to this is, how does really the user research uh, handled if you do any kind of testing like this?
Sure. I did do a lot of user researches for my projects, because it was maybe what the stakeholder has identified as a learning need might not be the learning need until you talk to the users. So you'll have to find that commonality. You have to really get to the core, and then, yeah, deep diving helps a lot, because there was a project where the business leader thought it's my team who are bold with the process, and then they're not able to uh, perform with a certain set of quality. They're not able to complete the process. When I talked to the users, they didn't have enough resources to follow the protocol. So that's when we had to bridge and then create that technology stack for them, where the resources were there, which was getting updated by the business leader group. Um, and yeah, everything worked out, and the quality was excellent.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to how we would like do it like with products, like digital product design, and how a designer in this case can influence the product vision, the scope, the requirements, right? In your case, it's a learning experience. Uh, Also, like talking about the, especially with learning, because there's so much content, right? You have to create and kind of make it work. How do you really handle localization, like in different languages and especially like different cultures? Because if you work for like a global company like Amazon, right, or like I'm sure it's a common problem everywhere. I mean, in most places, you have to consider different cultural differences and aspects in how you even craft the message, and how much really extra work this creates for you as a learning experience designer.
I think you're like reading my mind, Kirill.
I'm coming from the
Because
same world, so I can
yeah,
I think I can feel your pain at least in some places of what
yeah,
you have to do.
yeah, totally. Because I just came out of a project which had 12 long modules for translation, 12 languages. So, and then it was a compliance project. Um, the one that I was saying, it will be catered to 5,000 audience, and it's really a high impact. And the previous training, which got assigned, there were a lot of escalations on it because of the broken links and irrelevant content. And when I was given the challenge of creating a very sleek design and ensuring the focus is only on the content and not have a lot of animations, that's when I was like, what? Being a designer, I'm not allowed to do a lot of animations on a course. How do I keep my audience engaged? How do I make it visually appealing? And then I have 12 language translations, right? So again, I had a lot of discussions with the stakeholder to identify what is that they're really looking for. So one, they're looking to fix a problem that was created by a designer earlier. Two, they want the audience to learn from it and even have an acknowledgement. Now that everybody's working remotely, they are not able to connect with all the employees globally and get an acknowledgement um, on a piece of paper, uh, right? So they wanted to have a course which will generate the acknowledgements, and then the team could have a copy of it. So I simply used Rise. I did not even use Storyline because there is lag in it when it's loading, right? So I ensured used everything that is accessible and worked with the localization team. And only to my surprise, I got to know the translation um, is 60% machine, and then there's a linguist who reviews it. So that's when I was like, okay, this is not going to work, especially with the German language. So I interacted with reviewers from Germany, and because there is passion for language by every nationality, right? And it's in different levels. When I was talking to the German employees, they were like, I think this particular word is a bit offensive. Can you make it gender neutral? And yeah, so long story short, I had to work a lot with the reviewers and ensure the content is very gender neutral, and then making it more legit, making it more conversational. Because somebody who's a linguist might have the education certificates, but they do not know the local usage of that word. So I had to bridge the gap. It was an interesting project, and ultimately, I've received a lot of accolades for it. And I've created a document for localization, and um, th- I had to even work with the Articulate team to import some of the XLIF files on Rise. So yeah.
Sounds like a lots of potentially frustrating learnings
Yeah,
learnings from this
yeah.
project. On that note, like because every time I work with content and we have some kind of multi-stage review process, and this doesn't have to be like Amazon specific at all, but like overall as a tool that you could use for that. Do you have any good tools that you could recommend for this reviewing of the content where it's not just a spreadsheet? Because like I've been using like spreadsheets for the most part. I wonder if there's like anything better these days.
There are a couple. So Snagit is one, and then we use Vyond as well.
Every time I feel that it's such a manual and ineffective process, like all this kind of just using spreadsheets, especially how when you have multiple reviewers and how they will have like one piece of content, like for example a paragraph of text will have to go through like five different people, and how do you kind of merge all that stuff into one, so it always feels
Right.
like very inefficient
Yeah.
with
Um,
spreadsheets.
True. And on all Articulate products, it's very easy to create the Review 360 file and share it with like everybody on that project and get the feedback, as you give them some timeline, get the feedback. That's what I do, even if it's a storyline. I do a 360 review for it. Everybody gives the feedback. It's visible to to others as well, and then you incorporate and create a new file.
You mentioned something that kind of made me remind me of a challenge of education, and as a customer, as a student, so to say, right? So I found that it's getting more and more challenging to find a course, and this is not like Amazon specific, just kind of in general, uh, that keeps you engaged, right? And you mentioned something about engagement, and like you had to, you couldn't use animations and all that stuff, right? For that particular project. I wonder if you have any secrets you could share. Like, how do you really keep your audience engaged?
It's just a simple logic. So you become the learner first. So what do you want to see? What do you want to learn? And then do that bit of research of interacting and learning from others. How do they learn, given this is the content? So once you get ideas, you get different viewpoints, you curate it. Anything which is too wordy can be boring, can easily deviate your attention, and anything too flashy can also deviate. So finding the balance in between, and that's the hardest part of our jobs. Like uh, whatever the subject matter tells you that, hey, I want this content end to end, even the punctuation, but you step in and say, you know what, this can be better represented in a different fashion. The words yeah can be modified. So a lot of language plays a part in here, and you precise everything, you edit it, and you make the best of it.
Thinking through a bit more, like on the details of the process, right? And talking about engagement, different people will have different expectations what keeps them engaged, and like even like learning preferences, right? Like how do they really like consuming information in the most effective way. uh, do you also have to adjust your learning kind of to different audiences, or you try to create, or I guess, universally designed approach?
Again, a very interesting topic. Yes, we do consider the audience. We check the accessibility guidelines. If there is somebody in the category of deaf and hard of hearing, there's a different content for them. And I take ensure the colors are different for somebody who's got a visually, yeah. So you'll have to really do a bit of research before you prepare your content, and you have to be very inclusive in terms of regions as well. So there was this one project, the localization I was talking about. I had to consider the Saudi countries' a way of representation, their customs, their culture. So I had to like trim the hemlines for the graphics that I used, and the graphics that I used, it's mostly faceless, um, just to keep it inclusive. And I tried and used people with different hairstyles and different um, outfits to make sure that it's globally appealing. So that's a big. If I look back in my earlier e-learnings, this was not considered, but now it is the most. You create a globally inclusive content, um, and then how do you curate the language, how do you curate the content is, you can define everything, you can write it in as many words, but giving the concept and then having a learning quiz or a quick puzzle or a little video about it or an audio. I could share something from a another organization that I worked with. So there was this project where people have to be evaluated on how well can they handle customers. And you're talking about new hires who do not have any calling experience or working on chats. How do they learn the concept? How how can you say that after they complete the e-learning they are able to handle live calls? So for that kind of a concept, I really brainstormed and came up with aud- audio recordings for voice support and chat storyline files for chat support. So they have to watch the entire chat recording and then answer a list of questions from what did they understand. So did the customer get satisfied? Did they feel they were empathized and so on and so forth. So that's how you think through and you try to relate with the user, with the end user.
I have a couple more questions. So, like thinking about, I guess the career as a learning experience designer, right? What's the most common path forward? Like, is there like any, I don't know, other professions, like do learning experience designers go to UX design field, or I don't know, some kind of product management idea that like in the learning experiences? So what's really kind of the career track progression that you're exploring?
Absolutely, you can get into project management or product management, or if you're interested in people management, you can become, you can lead a team of instructional designers or a combination of UI, UX, both.
And going back to, I guess, the previous step of your career journey, um, is there anything that you miss from that time? Anything that would like you feel that your current like the tech world, I guess, variation of this educational profession misses that you wish it had more?
I wouldn't say I am missing something, but definitely there's a lot of work-life balance. In that part of career, it was very difficult for me to find some time, take a break, and even during the break time, I was busy arranging the classroom, taking care of the printouts, and ensuring my learners come back, and it's all tied and a spick and span. So there was this constant anxiety of, okay, what's happening tomorrow? I had to do a lot of planning for my classroom sessions. Had to be prepared. The only thing that I miss is probably the a lot of in-person connect that I had, though it was physically and emotionally draining and exhausting. Um, in here, I am the master of my calendar. I know what to do and I know what is expected out of me. So there are very short pitfalls and I can easily bounce from them. But in that past career, it was different. If I had explained something to a learner incorrectly, I couldn't undo it. So in here, I can simply edit the content and then there are a lot of reviews. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so and how do you, because especially with the new tools, right, and the how new technologies appear, and as we discussed earlier, like about the AI and the new automation and everything that should be helping you do your job better, I guess, and faster. Uh, how do you really keep up with what's happening? Like, like are there any newsletters that you read, or like, or how do you upskill yourself?
Yes, one is attending a lot of conferences, virtual or having that network of UI UX designers is very important. And networking, I mean, you can do it yourself by watching a lot of podcasts, um, and then watching a lot of YouTube videos. There's like zillion of resources in there, but what helps is with the reality check of the networking. Um, and then okay, oh, that's an interesting tool, let me explore it, because there's definitely no crystal ball, but the the future for UX looks very bright. So you will have to keep yourself up to date. Personally, what I do is I have a lot of friends in LinkedIn Learning and otherwise as well, in different platforms. I keep in touch with them. I get to know what's happening, what are the different tools, what are the various projects that you're working, and try to take that back and implement in whatever little I'm doing.
Have you played with ChatGPT yourself, and have you really kind of explored how you could start using this in your job?
Not yet. That is like in the pipeline. So when something comes up, I am already excited to know about it. Um, I, I just take a bit of time to really invest it, because once I get into it, then there's always the zeal of, oh, okay, we could use this. So I am optimistic of Chat GPT, but at the same time, the mixed reviews are making it a bit unconvincing at this minute.
Okay, so one more question that I remembered I wanted to ask. So if you had to choose one format of for a course, like either text, video, audio, I don't know, chat, conversation, or any other methods, I don't know, maybe in class, what would be okay? Let's focus actually on the online learning, like not in person learning, because there's a completely different leagues. What would you say is the most would be the most effective way to teach like majority of people?
I mean, I've been following the methodology of ADDIE. So, analyzing your audience, analyzing the learning need and the ultimate learning goal. And then you design your prototype, you design your storyboarding, and then you align your learning objectives. You even design how you would want the course to look like. And during your design phase itself, you're trying to identify how could I scale this if it's going to change. For example, you're trying to create a video with all the leaders in your team for a new hire, like an introductory video. But there are a lot of transitions that happen. So who's going to own it? So anything that you develop should not be person specific, but it should be a lot of process specific. Um, so and then you ultimately develop, and during your development phase, you consider feedback and always this has worked for me. Always take feedback from a user who doesn't know anything about your concept or the process, because that's how your new hire is going to learn. So yeah, take that feedback from them, and then you go back, you implement it, you test and try with a test set of audience, and see the success. um, Ultimately your dashboard um tells you about, okay, how did you do. In the teaching profession, the results were instantaneous. Like at the end of the day, you could ask, how did you find the session? But in the online program, it's instantaneous. At the same time, you get a lot of real feedback, because they are not seeing you who developed the content. For example, being a teacher, or a trainer, I used to get a lot of compliments physically, like, you're so welcoming, you're approachable. So it's person based, but in here it's a lot content based. It's more on something that you have developed.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely, you lose this personality context. I mean, like you can still embed it in how you craft this experience for online learning, but it's definitely a huge difference, I think, in like the communication style and the presentation and just personality and all this uh, what's like non-visual cues, like all these additional gestures and face, like and your mimics. Interesting, yeah. And yeah, I forgot there was another question, but I forgot. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's go to the last question. And maybe the answer is obvious, but I still want to ask it. So, if you didn't have to worry about money, Imagine that you won a lottery. What would you do?
uh, Out of the blue, like from instructional design to if money wasn't the question. Okay. Um, so, I mean, if you asked me a couple of years back, I would have said I would have bought a lot of stuff, traveled the world. Now I become more sane, and but I mean, I basically come from a land where I see a lot of people below the poverty line, and they're really struggling to get a meal, right? So rather than giving them a meal, maybe I will try to do a little of helping them get provide them means to earn their bread. So yeah, that's what I think I will do.
What would be the most, I guess, what do you think would be the most likely candidate to be this means to provide bread? Like kind of some even like job placements?
Yes, job placements. Yes, job placements is one, and yeah, their own small shops that they could run and earn. Yeah, small businesses, right?
So, and you would see yourself as like as a investor and like philanthropist kind of
Mm,
idea?
yeah, yeah. Not invested. I do not want it back. If they are happy and yeah, if they are able to earn their own bread, I think that'll do.
But I mean, like, what exactly would you be doing? Like, is it really kind of organizing and
Yes,
I guess
yes,
groups of people and
yeah.
almost like, yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
give
interesting.
them, give them the money that they require. Again, you being very like what I was talking about, being decisive. So you be the judge of it, and then you identify um, the the skill set in that person, and then you provide the means.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, sounds good. If somebody wants to follow up and reach out online and have a chat and maybe learn more about what it takes to be a learning experience designer, or maybe like some additional questions about how to get in the industry, maybe some kind of, I guess, mentoring kind of tips and questions, is there a way to reach you?
Absolutely, I am pretty active on LinkedIn Learning. Uh, I'm sorry, LinkedIn. I've been using a lot of LinkedIn Learning. Okay, yeah, I'm.
Yeah, I noticed. I was like, is it a new network that I'm missing out that I should be on? So you're on LinkedIn,
Yes.
and I'll include the link in the notes.
Mhm.
Okay, sounds good. And you're open to having these conversations, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds good. Okay. Thanks again for coming, Sophia. This was super interesting. I learned a lot about the world of learning experience design. Frankly, I kind of had a rough idea of what exactly learning designers do, but now it's, yeah, it's kind of more clear now. And yeah, thank you for sharing your lessons learned from your career, and for telling us about this inspiring story of transitioning from non-tech world to the tech world, because I think more and more people will need to face this decision, and really kind of explore this opportunity to grow in their career.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Kirill. It was awesome.